It is time to get out of pocket. I'm your host, Michael Davis, and we are live on the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel. We hope you guys have had a good week. If you're in the area I am, you might be experiencing some snow, so hopefully you're inside watching Out of Pocket very safely. I know one of my guests today, he's usually driving around in a car listening to Out of Pocket, but I actually have him on the show today. We'll get Dugout Debrief host Chris Deluca here in a second. We'll also bring in the co-host of Sideline Savants, the host of Three from Deep, Jason Calenzo, here on Out Pocket here in just a couple moments. Want to say thank you guys. If you are watching Boom Broadcasting, our YouTube channel, if you're watching Out Pocket, we're live talking some NFL news, talking some college football news. And so it's super exciting. If this is your first time joining us, we just want you to hit that subscribe button. It is completely free. So it costs you no money. It doesn't blow up your phone, but it does help support the guys I will have on here in just a couple minutes. And in addition, it helps us bring more content to you guys. Now, if you do know this, I'm a writer on Fans First Sports Network, and I had to break some news today that Carson Beck has transferred 24 hours after announcing he's foregoing the NFL draft, but also not returning to Georgia. He decided to enter the transfer portal, and now he's replacing Cam Ward, the Heisman candidate. So I can't talk about this alone today. I'm going to bring in two guys I trust. I just mentioned him. He is the host of Dugout Debrief. He's been traveling, so we didn't get an episode yesterday. We'll probably get one next week, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. We got the host of Dugout Debrief, Chris Deluca, wearing a West Virginia hat. Don't know how I feel about that, but it's better than a UNC Tar Heel hat. We'll just go ahead and say that. And then we have somebody who's hopefully not wearing any Giants garbage today. He's a New York fan through and through. He's the host of Three from Deep, the NBA podcast on Boom Broadcasting. We have Jason here in the show. And guys, we had some big news. And I was at my computer. I was writing a different article for Fans First Sports Network today. And when I saw the news that Carson Beck is transferring from Georgia to Miami, it was quite the shock, if I can say so myself. And so I want to deflect to Chris here first. Chris, what was your initial reaction to Carson Beck transferring from Georgia?
It didn't really surprise me that much because of how, there's arguments if this quarterback class is strong or not, but there are a lot of quarterbacks, whether if it's strong or not, that's not the topic of the discussion right now. But him foregoing the NFL draft is a good decision. I mean, he was going to fall down really far. There's a lot of people that were in front of him. And I think it was relatively a good idea for him to transfer. Miami, I think they were one step away from the college football playoff. And he looked pretty solid in games against not good teams, at least. And the ACC is a little bit weak on the weaker end. So I think it was a smart business decision for him through and through to forego the NFL draft, give it another year, see how you do, and then also go to a conference that's a little bit more your fit. Not calling him terrible. I don't think Carson Beck's a bad quarterback, but more his speed, you know?
Yeah, maybe more his speed in Miami. Jason, he has taken over for Cam Ward, the Heisman candidate. And by the way, you guys can be commenting live on YouTube. We want to interact with you. We want to engage with you. And Podcast Smitty, the host of Quick Hits, he's on a little vacay this week. Quinn Ewers is next, thinking that Ewers might transfer from Texas and give Arch Manning a place to thrive. We've been following that closely. Podcast Smitty does a great job following the college football landscape. Jason, what was your initial reaction to Carson Beck deciding to go to Miami and leave Georgia?
Again, it's not very exciting right now because it's the Wild West and the NCAA. We're so accustomed to seeing people transfer and everything now with the transfer portal. Guys are jumping all over the place. So it's not a huge surprise. In fact, it was probably like Chris said, it was a great business move for him because coming off of that injury against Texas, he was going to fall in the draft. And look what Miami did for Cam Ward. I mean, he went from Washington State as kind of I don't want to say a top tier quarterback, but he was going to be somewhere in the draft. He wasn't going to be huge, but now coming out of Miami, he's probably going to be the first draft pick right now. So I think that was an excellent move for him. Get out of Georgia. He did, he spent his time there 2 full seasons, 4 years, I think he spent there total. So he did all he can do there. Plus, he's going to a relatively easier conference, in the ACC. So I think he's going to really thrive there. And again, with what Cam Ward did in Miami, throwing for over 4,000 yards, if you put Beck down there, who I think is a little bit of a better passer than Cam Ward, I think he's going to do some good things. So not totally shocked. Nothing in the NCAA shocks me anymore because, again, it is the Wild West because guys can kind of do whatever they need to do or want to do or go wherever they want with nil money and everything else. So, but interesting choice, though, for Miami to go from Georgia to Miami. So I'm curious to see what he does with that next year. And I'm curious to see how Georgia handles that, having one of their own down in South Beach.
And I'm glad you brought up Cam Ward transferring from Washington State because not many people knew about Cam Ward. And then he goes to a big school in Miami, and he's all of a sudden a Heisman candidate. And if the team doesn't falter off towards the end of the year, I personally think Cam Ward would have been a great candidate for the Heisman Trophy. And with Cam Ward transferring in his first year being in that Heisman race, that begs a question. Like, I wonder who's going to have the better transfer year, Cam Ward or Carson Beck. Personally, I'm a lot higher on Cam Ward and his abilities. I think he's, just a better quarterback than Carson Beck if you compare the two, apples to oranges, if you will. But Chris, who do you think will have the better transfer year? What we just saw Cam Ward accomplish, or is the ceiling higher for Carson Beck?
I think Cam Ward by a mile. I got to agree with you, Michael. I mean, I was taking a look at his football reference before the show. I mean, Cam Ward led in most quarterback statistic categories. I mean, he led in touchdowns, yards per attempt. I think he also led in completion percentage. I could be wrong on that one, but he led in a lot of relevant categories, and his rating went way up. He led in passer rating too this year, like a 178 or something insane. And Carson Beck, I'm not calling him a systems quarterback necessarily, but Cam Ward knows how to get it done. And overall, Cam Ward finished, I think, third in Heisman voting, and he probably would have won the Heisman if not for Ashton Genty and Travis Hunter in any other year, especially as a quarterback from a Power 4 school. But I don't ever see Carson Beck contending for the Heisman, so I think that it's a safe bet to say that Cam Ward will have had the better transfer year going when we look back at this in 365 days.
And 365 days, we'll be on Out Pocket on Boom Broadcasting dictating how this all ended up. And it's interesting. I'm actually in the process of, reviewing an article I did last year around this time when all the 8 coaches were hired, and I'm going, bit by bit. And that was actually one of the articles I was working on. I was working on an article about a certain Raiders coach that is no longer with the organization. I'm sure Cody from Drew Code Sports Talk is a little hurt by that, but I was writing that article when this news dropped. And, Chris and I both agree that, Cam Ward's probably going to have the stronger year than Carson Beck will have this year. Jason, do you, speaking of Drew Code Sports Talk, very hurt. Glad you are watching us, my friend. Say his name and he appears. Max saying NIL money, probably more than a 3rd or 4th round draft pick money. Jason, this is why I think Carson Beck decided, because, he won't be able to throw till March, like I wrote about in fansfirstsports.com. So he could have been a 3rd, 4th round pick, and hopefully he'll come back in a year and be like, hey, I'm a Heisman Trophy candidate. But Jason, I don't see him having a better year than Cam.
It's going to be tough. I think a lot of it depends on who Miami surrounds him with, because I think they did a great job surrounding Cam Ward with talent that kind of matched his talent. So I think a lot of it's going to be, okay, Carson Beck is this kind of quarterback. Can we put talent around him and make him succeed? So it's going to be tough because you don't know how you're going to bounce back from this injury. You don't know, who really Miami is going to have next year, what kind of team they're going to have. But at least Carson Beck is coming there with experience. He's played in a really, really tough, conference there in the SEC. So, a poor man's Kirk Cousins. Ooh, that's a little It's a little rough.
Talk and to give
yeah.
give people context. If you're not watching the YouTube feed, what are you doing? And second, Drew Code Sports Talk saying, I wonder what Carson Beck's ceiling is. A poor man's Kirk Cousins. Jason, I know you don't want your Giants to get Kirk Cousins.
Oh no.
This comment seems a little out of pocket. It seems a little mean.
A little bit. Yeah, please don't. Kirk Cousins is 100 years old, so let's not put Carson Beck in there. But I think he has a chance because he's coming in with some experience. So I think if Miami does it right, they put the right pieces around him, I think he can succeed. I think he can have a good year and be a solid quarterback. Will he be a first pick, Heisman Trophy sitting there at the table? He better run the table and get Miami to at least the playoffs, let alone the national championship game. I think if he does something like that and has that kind of season, then great. But if he goes there and starts losing a couple of games and really struggles, I think this actually may hurt him more than anything.
Dude, and that'd be interesting. That's the gamble you play, whether you're like, hey, I think my draft stock is high enough, and we've seen several prospects in every league, NBA, NFL, MLB, so on and so forth. But, with Carson Beck now going to Miami, that leaves Gunnar Stockton there to play quarterback for Max saying the current Andy Dalton. Man, just throwing shades on, Andy Dalton, Kirk Cousins, Carson Beck.
These are kids, man. Come on. You can't beat them up that bad. These are kids.
Come on, draft Drew Aller.
You don't go to high school games and boo the kids, man. Come on.
You want to draft Drew Aller. Come on. The Giants would draft Drew Aller.
No.
Oh, my goodness. No. Talking about Penn State right there. Talked about Drew Aller last night, actually, while I was at the weight room revival
kids,
event.
Man.
It was it was pretty funny. But Gunnar Stockton, he took over in that second half in the SEC title game against Texas. He was able to, keep going. And then, in the bowl game against Notre Dame, didn't really show up. 234 passing yards, 1 touchdown, lost about 23-10. And now Notre Dame, we'll talk about here in a few minutes. They're going to the national championship. Podcast Me says Gunnar can't even throw. Chris, is Podcast Me out of pocket, or do you think Gunnar's not the guy in Georgia?
He didn't really impress me, but I think that they're going to take a long look at it in the offseason. I mean, they have a much longer time than they're used to. So the Bulldogs have a bit longer of a time they're used to review their quarterback situation, develop based on. Oh, geez. I don't know if I'd go that low, Drew Code Sports Talk.
Nathan Peterman.
Wow. Yeah, Nathan Peterman, a pit legend right there.
Wrong.
But I can't say Gunnar Stockton is the guy or isn't the guy because of the lack of exposure that we've really had to him. He didn't really impress me in the SEC championship when he came in. He seems sustainable, but at the same time, Kirby Smart is very good at winning with not very good quarterbacks. I mean, he had Stetson Bennett for a long time. No one would say he was a really great quarterback, and Carson Beck was probably one of the better ones. So who knows? I think that they're going to have to take a long look this offseason and figure it out.
Yeah, and Matt bringing a good point. Your NFL star quarterbacks generally don't come from the talent-rich college teams. I remember, Alabama went on their run, and I was like, why wouldn't a team, pick like an A.J. McCarron? Probably not first round, but second or third, and, he was a long-term backup option in Cincinnati, but beyond that, that's just one of many examples. And Podcast Me asking about Dylan Gabriel, the quarterback from Oregon. Could he transfer? I feel like
I think he's in his last year eligibility. I thought.
I feel like he would done. Just.
His fifth year is COVID year, and then
Dude, also with this eligibility stuff, I'm losing track. It feels like you, especially in the college basketball realm, you got Armando Bacot playing well into 23rd, 24th grade, if you will. He's and Podcast Me, AJ lit up the UFL, baby. But Jason, do you have any hope for Gunnar Stockton and where he could lead this Bulldogs team?
I think that's going to be tough. He's definitely not a bigger quarterback. He's only 6'1". Carson Beck was 6'4". So in the SEC, I think that's going to be a little rough. Right now, I think Georgia. I mean, you can't grade this guy on coming in raw like he did. He came in at the pretty much the middle of the Texas game, and then you throw him out there against Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's defense is pretty good. So he did okay, but I didn't think he was going to do very much against that defense. So, I mean, don't beat the kid up, but at the same time, I think Georgia right now, I think they're passing around the collection plate, trying to get that nil money to see who else they can kind of get to transfer into Georgia. So I don't think Gunner is going to be the starting quarterback for Georgia when the season starts. I think something's going to change.
Yeah, and Max saying Baycott stopped playing for UNC when Social Security started. You got some college players staying in school like Tommy Boy. So we'll see, and the jury's still out on Carson Beck and everything. By the way, we do have breaking news we'll cover here in a few minutes, but wanna switch gears a little bit to the college football playoff. The college football playoff, we saw Notre Dame win last night 27-24 against a really good Penn State defense. And Notre Dame's defense was, a little bit better, holding Drew Aller to 12 of 23, 135 yards, 1 interception, gave up 3 rushing touchdowns to Nicholas Singleton, but, came away 27-24 victory, and they're in the college football playoff finals, the national championship game. And they're, for the longest time, I felt like Brian Kelly had a really talented squad, even dating back to the Manti Te'o days, when, Lene Kakua was around or wasn't around or whatever that scandal was. It felt like Notre Dame had a lot of talent at some points. And you look at the players they've produced in the NFL, you're like, well, why they never, reach their full potential? And now Marcus Freeman, who, a lot of NFL teams like if he was ever to make the jump to the NFL, and, a lot of college teams wish they had Freeman as their head coach. Now Notre Dame's like in position to where they play the winner of Ohio State and Texas. So guys, I'm a little confused. Jason, help bring it to light a little bit. Why did Notre Dame never see this success like they did this year with Marcus Freeman?
Well, you talk about Brian Kelly, you talk about expectations versus reality. You got to remember back then, the transfer portal wasn't open like it was. No money wasn't around like it was. It was talent heavy in the SEC. Notre Dame had some talent, but they did not have the top 5 guys. They didn't have Ohio State. They didn't have Alabama. They didn't have Clemson talent. So for a lot of years, Notre Dame was living on their name. And right now, they have a talented team with a talented coach who is getting that much out of them, because this coach is not like Brian Kelly was. I think Brian Kelly was cocky, brash. Again, expectations versus reality. He came in and thought he was going to be the savior, and he was going to put Notre Dame back on the map. And, you get that kind of weight on your shoulders in college. Sometimes it doesn't pan out, but it's very impressive. Marcus Freeman, unbelievable job he's doing in Notre Dame, bringing them back to the national championship game. Look, the NCAA has been dying for Notre Dame to be back on the top of the national football landscape. So the NCAA is loving this right now. And right now it is amazing. He is the first black head coach to coach in a national championship game, which is an unbelievable feat. It's also disappointing that it's taken this long for that to happen. So congratulations to Marcus Freeman. He's doing an unbelievable job. He's got those guys playing unbelievably well for that school. And it's nice to see Notre Dame back on top.
Yeah, and Podcast Me saying he despises Notre Dame, but Marcus Freeman's a heck of a coach. And he hopes they win it. Which is interesting to see for Shannon to hope for good success. And Drew Code Sports Talk asking, when do we start speculating that Marcus Freeman is going to the NFL? Podcast Me predicts very soon. Chris, do you like what Marcus Freeman's doing? Is there a difference? I mean, is it just the landscape with the NIL and the transfer portal that's helped Marcus Freeman get success that Brian Kelly struggled with?
I think there's a lot of things, and Jason hit on a lot of the points that I was thinking about. But one thing I do want to know, I'm the biggest Brian Kelly hater you'll ever meet. I hate him. I hate his cockiness. I think he was arguably culture-wise the
Very.
worst culture head coach by a mile. He is the worst. Well, Marcus Freeman, but not
Marcus Freeman.
Okay.
I think Mac is saying Marcus is the college version.
No, I agree with him. Brian Kelly is toxic. He created a toxic locker room environment. And I think that was a big reason a lot of people didn't want to go to Notre Dame. One, because as Jason mentioned, there were other programs that were a lot better. I mean, just looking back, they always got killed by either Clemson or Alabama every single year. And while Notre Dame does have that name recognition, they really didn't have much else at the time. And they had a terrible head coach who he is getting everything he deserves at LSU. I wish LSU nothing but the worst because they signed him. And Marcus Freeman is a great guy. I remember when he took over at the first game that they won after he took over, he's sitting there throwing on the players, saying it's all on the players. I call the plays. It's all them. He leads by example. He's a great, great guy. Marcus Freeman, I've been big on him since Notre Dame signed him. I think it was a great idea to go ahead and do that. I think it's well deserved that Notre Dame's in the national championship, and seeing Marcus Freeman there makes me really happy. Regardless of who they play, I'll be rooting against them because, horns down always, even though they left for that conference in the South that doesn't even have anybody outside of Texas left. So, yeah, I'll be rooting for Notre Dame regardless.
And podcast me saying Brian Kelly's one of the reasons he despises Notre Dame. He got what was coming to him this year. Yeah, LSU wasn't even that great. And we'll see what happens in the college football playoff. But guys, we want to do our first part of our predictions. We're going to predict the NFL playoff weekend as well. But before we get into this breaking news that came in literally about 15 minutes ago, we have Ohio State, the Buckeyes, and the Longhorns tonight. Guys, this is going to be an exciting game. I'm excited for it. I'm going to be split screening probably between the college football game and Friday Night SmackDown. Ohio State's favored by 6 points, and obviously there was a lot of scrutiny towards Ryan Day, so it is very paramount that Ryan Day has gotten his team to the semifinal and hopefully for him to the final, because a lot of people are upset they lost to Michigan 4 straight years. This class has never beaten the Michigan Wolverines. If they beat Texas tonight, they'll be in the national championship game against Notre Dame, and all could be forgiven. Jason, you love your picks. Ohio State or Texas? How you see this one going, and who do you have?
I'm leaning them a little more towards Texas. I think they've been a little more consistent this year. They did have their one loss to Georgia, which is a little better team than Michigan. So I'm going to go with Texas. Ewers, a little bit better quarterback to me than Howard. Although Jeremiah Smith, wide receiver for Ohio State, as a freshman, is a freaking beast, man. He's going to be a top draft pick when he comes out. They're both pretty even, and I would suspect that the NCAA wants to see Texas win this too, because you talk about eyeballs on the screens and money. You put Texas and Notre Dame, in the national championship game, and that's going to bring viewership. So I have a feeling the NCAA is hoping Texas wins this too, because they want them back on the top of the national landscape also. So I am leaning towards Texas. I think Ohio State has kind of been skating by. Day, I don't know. I mean, with the way they've been performing, if he really bombs this game, he may not be there next year because, again, you are hired at Ohio State for one thing: beat Michigan. And if you don't do that, you don't stay around too much longer. They can get by not having a winning season. They can get by losing in the national championship or losing in a semifinal game. They can handle that. But Ohio State cannot handle losing to Michigan. So he's under the gun big time right now. So I wonder if that pressure is going to start seeping out when they start getting behind against Texas. So be interesting to see. But I got the Longhorns. I got them by about a touchdown. So give me the Longhorns by 7. I think it's going to be a pretty decent game, but I think Texas pulls away.
Chris, do you have the Longhorns winning this game as well? And do you think that impacts Ryan Day's future?
I'm actually going to Ohio State here. They have all the momentum. They looked really, really dominant against Oregon, especially at the beginning. And even though Oregon did score a little bit toward the end, that game was not as close as the score said. That was pure domination against the number one team in the country, an undefeated team. Yeah, they did lose to Michigan, but Ohio State seems like that really lit a fire under them, and that lit a fire under Ryan Day, obviously. Texas started kind of slow against Arizona State. Texas has always kind of started slow against higher competition. Arizona State put up a really good fight against them. I was really hoping Arizona State would. Again, Big 12 bias here. But yeah, I'm going to go Ohio State. All the momentum's going their way. The fire's still going. As long as that passion that they got from losing to Michigan continues, I think Ohio State coasts through. I got Ohio State by 14.
You got Ohio State by 14.
Wow.
When it comes to this game, I want to see two things. One, well, let me phrase it like this. I am predicting and hoping Texas wins. And there's two reasons why. One, Texas has only lost to Georgia twice this year. Okay. I think that is their kryptonite. Every other game, Texas has looked good. They've been on fire. Who cares if it's Quinn Ewers? Who cares if it's Arch Manning coming in a play or two? This Texas team is deep, and they are a force to be reckoned with. And I do want to see if Ohio State doesn't win this game and doesn't advance to the national championship game, does Ohio State move on from Ryan Day? I don't want there to be any speculation. I don't want to see like, hey, he saved his job with this national title. No. I want to see if they will actually pull the trigger and say, hey, no, you didn't beat Michigan. This was a letdown that we didn't make the national championship game, and you're to blame for that, and we're going to look elsewhere because they do have a lot of talent. Jeremiah Smith, he's been compared to Megatron, Calvin Johnson Jr., and that is high praise. Like, he will be a top 3 to 5 pick whenever he comes out in the draft, and he is too good to waste. So do you have enough faith in Ryan Day to get you over the hump? Or, is it this year? But I'm going Texas as well. I think it is going to be Texas by about 10 in this game. And we'll see what the Longhorns have. Now, we're going to predict some NFL stuff. We'll also talk about Deshaun Watson tearing his Achilles again, but there was some breaking news that I don't even have the nice little graphic for. And we have our 3 from Deep Host. We have NBA breaking news. And Jason, I'm a huge Duke fan. As you can see, one of the best players I got to watch on my television screens for the Duke Blue Devils was Zion Williamson, and Zion has been suspended 1 game by the team for being late. And so Zion Williamson will miss this next game, being late for his flight. And so they will not be playing with Zion Williamson against the Philadelphia 76ers tonight. In a statement, Zion Williamson said that, and this is from ESPN, that he takes full responsibility for the suspension. He's worked extremely hard in rehab to get healthy. There's no excuse for being late. He apologized to the owner, his teammates, his coaches, to the fans, and promises vows to be a better teammate and member of this organization. We're going to get into the NFL news with Deshaun Watson and the NFL picks, but while we have our 3 from Deep Host with this breaking news, what's your opinion on Zion Williamson being late and getting suspended?
I think that's just a deeper issue. There's been some scuttlebutt coming out of New Orleans that they've been talking about trading Zion Williamson. His work ethic has been questioned. Some of his off-court stuff has been questioned, that he's been not the best teammate. Again, he's just not just taking care of his business. He's never on the court. And unfortunately, his work ethic has been showing that, and the team is getting tired of his antics. So, I mean, normally when something like this happens, if a guy's late, you don't hear anything about it. This is like trivial. So for the Pelicans to really make this a big deal, suspend him for a game. He's got to issue a statement and all this other stuff, which that's standard operating procedure. These guys have their help, give them the statements and all the stuff that, I apologize to everybody under the sun, you hear that all the damn time. But his work ethic and some of the things that he's been doing off the court is in questions. And I think the Pelicans are going to be moving on from Zion very, very soon here. So I think this is just one of those things that they're making it known because he's just not being what they need him to be. He was chosen first in the draft to be transformative for that team, to be the face of that franchise. And here we are years later, and he's been anything but, because he could barely get on the court. They've questioned his work ethic. They've questioned his conditioning, that he's been overweight and all this other stuff. So this is just another knock on him. And the Pelicans are making an example out of him to make this a big deal. So it's a little disappointing because we were all excited. We wanted to see the guy that blew out his shoe, came out of, just rocked the rim, came out of Duke with all this fanfare and flair. And he has really, really fallen flat. And the Pelicans have spent a lot of money on a guy that is just not producing and is not doing the things he needs to do to get back on the court, and they're really beating him up for it. So it's a little concerning to, you're late for playing. These guys are late and all this other stuff all the time. So for the Pelicans to make this an example, that speaks something a little louder than I apologize for being late.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing is, like, again, I'm a Duke fan. I'm a Miami Heat fan, and, all the stuff going on with Jimmy Butler, it's like, it's really sad. But I don't own other team jerseys, but I do own a Zion Williamson Pelicans jersey because I was like, this guy is the real deal. I'm super excited. He's super talented. He's super gifted. I wonder if a change of scenery would be good for him. Get into a culture where they're going to challenge you and they're going to push you. But, we've seen with the Jimmy Butler saga that, all this stuff becomes public and teams are willing to offer as much for their services. And so if you start looking at how many games Zion Williamson's played, he's being late. Even the capital that the Pelicans could get back in potential trade is all of a sudden decreasing. So we'll have to keep our eye on this news that broke just minutes ago. Alan, what's up, my dude? Appreciate you joining Out of Pocket live on Boom Broadcasting. We're about halfway through. Max saying somewhere with no gumbo. I wonder if that is what the Cleveland Browns were kind of thinking when they traded a lot of capital for Deshaun Watson and saying, hey, do we have any massage therapists like anywhere in the area? Okay, we only have a few. Okay, let's make sure he doesn't show up there, because Deshaun Watson has 2 Achilles heels. 1, massage clinics, and 2, his Achilles heel. He tore his Achilles again, so this is a major setback in his recovery, and he is going to be having surgery again. Now, just to remind you, what Houston got for Deshaun Watson was 2 first-round picks, a 4th-round pick, and Deshaun Watson got a fully guaranteed contract with the Cleveland Browns. So this is a tough situation. Browns fans were already, on their last leg and, on their last straw with Deshaun Watson. But, I mean, Chris, it looks like, especially with the Browns having the number 2 overall pick, and tearing his Achilles just in rehab, would be another reason to say that Deshaun Watson's career, especially as we know several years ago, as one of the best quarterbacks in the Texans franchise, it's probably over, Chris.
I think it is, and I hope it is. Don't get well soon. But overall, one thing that I will say about it, just with Watson in general, the only downside to this probably being the end of his career is that we don't get to watch him embarrass himself every day. I mean, we only got to see him embarrass himself 19 games with the Browns. Yeah, but in all seriousness, that's the thing. Is so one of my very good friends is a Browns fan, and him and I, when we're just talking football, we'll just start naming because you ever seen that jersey with all the Browns quarterbacks since they came back, like the new Browns came back. We'll look at that jersey and we'll just name quarterbacks that we think are objectively better. We'll just start listing them, and we'll go on and on and on. And that's the thing, is they're getting everything they deserve. Baker Mayfield's balling out in Tampa Bay. They went and traded basically all their draft stock for the next few years for an unproven quarterback who had legal issues, who should by all means be on not just the injured list, but another list. And he's terrible. He sucked. And the only downside to this being the end probably for him is we don't get to watch him go out there and just embarrass himself, because now he gets to go fade into obscurity. Because what does Deshaun Watson want? He wants us to forget about what he did. And the best way to do that is to fade completely into obscurity. So I think that I said this before, Jason, you definitely know Bobby Bonilla. I think it's going to be a Bobby Bonilla type situation where they just pay him out for like 30 years long term. And that's it. I don't think we ever see him play football again. And he'll just be forgotten, which is good and bad in some senses,
Wow. Chris, Jason, do you want to follow that at all?
Well, I can, and I have no problem doing that. But and again, Deshaun Watson deserves every bit of it. He was not apologetic. He was not humble during this whole process, and it made people hate him even more. Look, there's a lot of guys. You look at someone like a Michael Vick who did something that is superbly egregious and got killed for it. But when he came back, he took the steps. He was apologetic. He went to his different counseling. He tried to make amends with everybody he hurt, and people ended up wrapping their arms around him. Nobody wants to wrap their arms around Deshaun Watson. Look, the Cleveland Browns are historically terrible with making these decisions, and this is the nail in the coffin. I don't know how much worse you can get. Look, you owe Deshaun Watson $46 million a year for the next 2 years. If you cut him by June 1st, your dead cap hit is $119 million. So they're definitely keeping him on. Now, they do have some kind of weird injury insurance on his contract that in 2026, they'll get about $44 million towards their cap hit taken back. So they'll get a little bit of a credit because he did get injured. But I'm wondering if the Cleveland Browns Nancy Kerrigan him and whacked him on the knee to make sure, or on the Achilles to make sure that thing popped again, because they know they had that second round pick and they wanted to go out and get a quarterback. So I wonder if somebody tripped him during the rehab process there. But it is, you feel bad for Browns fans. I don't feel bad for Deshaun Watson. He dug his own grave. I feel bad for Browns fans. Those are some of the most loyal fans in the NFL. I've been to Cleveland a couple of times. It's a great little city. Their fans are wonderful. You talk to them, you hang out with them. They love their team no matter what. For them to go through this and have to deal with this, that is a blight on that ownership group. And if I was Roger Goodell, this is one of those things where the commissioner needs to get off his can and step in and go to that ownership group and go like, look, guys, you screwed this up from the beginning. You need to either work on fixing this, or I'm going to find somebody else to take ownership of this team, because this is one of those things where you have just ruined this franchise for the next 3 to 5 years. It is unbelievable. It is sad. And I hope the Browns fans, yes.
Let's make a figure skating show. Come on. Let's make a figure skating show.
Yes. So I feel bad for the Browns fans. I don't feel bad for Watson. He does need to fade away. This is bad. And he's just does not deserve people wrapping his arms around him, because, karma's a bee, man. And this is what it is. He's getting what he deserved. He did wrong. He took advantage of that situation. And the Cleveland Browns, you guys are paying for it for the next umpteen years. So just sad day in Cleveland, man. They need some help. But hopefully they can kind of go, okay, it's going to cost us this much. Let's just pay it, get it over with, and let's go out and draft a quarterback with the number 2 pick and find out who's going to be kind of our savior. But just I feel bad for whoever is going to come in there, whether it's Cam, whether it's Sanders, whoever gets picked 1 or 2. So you kind of feel bad for that quarterback because now you've got a guy that's going to be a rookie and that's going to come into this situation, and it's going to have that lingering behind him. So it's going to be really, really difficult for that organization to pop and come through this.
Yeah. And mouthing off with Mike, the host of the Nightcap, me and him had a wild time for the first Raw on Netflix Nightcap late Monday night. I believe he's back tonight for SmackDown immediately following that 3-hour program. That's 8 to 11 now on USA. And then the Nightcap is after the SmackDown show on Boom Broadcasting right here live. So that's why you should subscribe if you're a wrestling fan. And Jason brought up this point a little bit. And Chris, I do want to ask you this is like, look into the future. I mean, we know the quarterbacks at the top of the class right now, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. Do you think that, obviously one of them's probably getting taken off the board prior to Cleveland getting their selection. Do you think Cleveland should get the second choice at number 2, or should they wait next year where they could potentially tank and get like an Arch Manning?
It's hard to tell. It really is hard to tell. I think that they're going to, knowing the Browns and their draft history, they're going to pick a quarterback. And I think that they're probably going to go with Shedeur Sanders, even though I would go with Cam Ward personally. I think Cam Ward's the most NFL-ready quarterback, him and Dylan Gabriel. I don't think Dylan Gabriel will be necessarily elite, but I think they're the 2 most NFL-ready. I think Shedeur Sanders needs to go into a situation that is not as dysfunctional as that team is. He would need to go into a situation with a little bit more structure. I won't even say hypotheticals with Shedeur. If he's available, it would not surprise me if they draft him. It also wouldn't surprise me if they draft Travis Hunter if he fell, but I don't think he will because with the Browns number 2, I think now.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, if Tennessee goes Hunter, which I don't know if they will, I think they'll go probably Shedeur Sanders, even though they should go Cam Ward. It's hard to tell, but they'll definitely draft a quarterback just knowing their draft history.
Yeah, and I hope I can share this news live that the Gridiron Address, Aaron, it's getting closer to the playoffs being done, and he's going to be doing some mock draft type of content throughout his Gridiron Address. So we're excited to see what he cooks up with that. Good evening to Derek Pauly from Pauly's Pick'ems. If you guys are big football fans and haven't participated, that is who you need to connect with on Facebook. That's where he's commenting from. Mac predicting Titans go quarterback. So, Cleveland would have to go for the second, best guy. And then that would probably mean that the Giants would get Travis Hunter at number 3, which I don't want to see. Under no circumstances do I want the Titans to draft Travis Hunter. I do not want to see that. But, rest be assured, Cleveland needs to get their next quarterback right. Whether they do believe it's Shedeur, whether they do believe it's Cam, and if they're there, they should take them. They should do their due diligence, do their homework. But if they don't think it's either of them, take a role player, take somebody like Travis Hunter who can help be a dynamic player on both sides of the football if he desires, and just tank for a quarterback like Arch Manning next year because, we've mentioned it, Cleveland fans have had to endure a lot. And ever since giving Deshaun Watson this big contract, he hasn't had more than 7 touchdown passes and more than 7 games each of his 3 years in Cleveland. 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and 22.
And let me throw this out there. If Cleveland does get a chance to draft Sanders, does dad step in and go, I don't want my son there? And you see an Eli Manning kind of situation, like if you draft my son, he ain't showing up. So there's that little bit of wrinkle in there too. So right now, Cleveland has to worry about being a toxic environment that no one's going to want to go there. So that's another concern.
And that's true. Or, Deion's like, hey, I don't trust them to take care of my boy. I'm going to leave Colorado and come coach the Cleveland Browns and watch
There's
that.
so many
happen.
better jobs for Dion. I think he can do much better than Cleveland. I think I could see him in Dallas playing with the star on his shoulder again.
I don't know. I have my own Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders thoughts. I'm sure Aaron will have me on the gridiron just once upon a time, and we'll cover that a little bit. But yeah, very interesting to see. Deshaun Watson obviously hasn't panned out, and it doesn't look like he will. So we'll keep covering that. But guys, we have gotten to it. You guys look forward to this every Friday. And usually these are regular season games that I'm handpicking, okay, like what are the most intriguing? What are the good games? These are all good games because it is the playoffs. We're about to get wild right here on Out of the Pocket, and it is the NFL wild card round. Now, we have 5 games this weekend, and we have the 6th on Monday night. We're going to save that Monday night game till Monday's Out of Pocket when we return. But we have 5 games until we see you guys here again. And if you're new to us, subscribe to the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel so you'll be able to watch the recap of the Gridiron Address Sunday evening. But in addition, Out of Pocket covering that Monday game and covering what does happen this weekend for the NFL playoffs. And the first game that will kick off the wild card round are the LA Chargers. And Jim Harbaugh in his first year with the team leaded Justin Herbert into Houston to play the Texans, who see C.J. Stroud in a sophomore slump. But the Chargers weren't expected to be here. Houston was expected to be better than they have been. Jason, it's the Chargers, Texans. Chargers are favored by 3 on the road. How do you see this one playing out?
Well, first of all, especially everybody in LA, thoughts and prayers go out to everybody. And I think that's going to unfortunately play a little bit of a role in this because I know a lot of those LA Charger players have been affected by the fires that are going on out there. So again, guys, thoughts and prayers for LA, what they got going on out there. Everybody's picking the Chargers right now against them. Houston's not playing very good. That Chargers defense is legit. But I'm going Houston. I think CJ Stroud kind of gets over the hump with the sophomore slump. I think he's going to play a little better. They got Joe Mixon back there, Nico Collins, so Dalton Schultz. So they have the weapons. I can see him getting through this game and being successful. Justin Herbert just is not proven, still struggles, hasn't really done anything in the playoffs. Still a pretty young team. Ladd McConkey is a stud wide receiver. Ladd the Impaler, I love him. I think he's going to be an amazing wide receiver for years to come, but rookie. So, and Jim Harbaugh, I think is going to struggle a little bit in this game because Houston's going to get coached up. So give me Houston in this game. I think they're going to upset the Chargers. I think the LA's got a lot on their mind right now, which is unfortunate. But I think I got Houston in the upset.
He's got Houston in the upset. And by the way, before we get Chris's prediction, this is why we do live stream comments. Podcast me saying Gunner can't even throw earlier in the show. And then HT Hammock decided to come in and say, are you on that Travis Scott? Stockton broke every Georgia State passing record that matters, beating Trevor Lawrence's record. So a little disagreement in the chat going on right now. HT Hammock, appreciate you watching Out of Pocket right here live on Boom Broadcasting. Hit that subscribe button and keep letting us know what you think of when we will be covering a live college football as well as the NFL like we are right now. Chris, Chargers, Texans, who you got?
Close one, really close one. Took a long time. I did my first take on this in Gridiron Address last week. I had Houston. I'm still on the cusp, if I'm being honest with you. I'm very, very back and forth. But there's one big. I'll say 2 sides to it very, very quickly. Chargers rush defense is fantastic. Joe Mixon has looked like not himself the past few weeks. On the other side of it, C.J. Stroud has looked pretty decent. He's thrown for 200 yards in his last 2 games. And combined 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I'm going to change my pick from the Gridiron Address. I'm going to go contradict myself here. I've had a little bit of time to think about it. I think Chargers win. I think that rush defense stops Joe Mixon. It's a low-scoring game. Texans are banged up, and after a little bit more deep thought, I'm going the Chargers now.
Oh, so we're split right now. I I'll be honest. I've not been a Justin Herbert guy. I haven't been for a while. There's not a lot on that roster to look like. But you look at Houston, who has struggled. There is no Stephon Diggs. There is no Tank Dell. They are relying heavily on Nico Collins and Joe Mixon. And CJ Stroud's had a sophomore slump, which happens to second-year quarterbacks. The Chargers have a defense, and that's what matters in the playoffs. And Rock Renegade taking the words out of my mouth. Harbaugh leads the Chargers. Jim Harbaugh has the playoff experience. That's what matters. That's what he's going to impart on Justin Herbert and this young team. And just for Aaron Schneider from the Gridiron Address, Zeke's going to get 2 of those touchdowns this weekend, helping the LA Chargers beat the Houston Texans on the road. Just saying, because
you just jinxed the Chargers with that Zeke comment right there. Yeah, just jinxed them.
Yeah, whatever. 2 touchdowns for Zeke and win for the Chargers. But we have one that is a coin flip. AFC North, Steelers, Ravens. Chris, this is your Pittsburgh team. How do you feel about it? Sway me or Jason one way or the other?
I mean, I know what I want to happen. And I think it's going to be closer than people are saying. If we play the same way that we did in the first matchup against them in Baltimore, we will probably win. I mean, it's just, again, I'm not going to hem and haw on this because I can do that on Sunday after we potentially lose, win, whatever. It's annoying that we're written off quick, but at the same time, I get why the haters are hating. Sometimes the haters are right. Run the ball 2 times, incomplete pass. Najee Harris somehow rushed for 1,000 yards again this year, which I didn't even realize that until I was watching like this trivia thing I saw on TikTok. And his rushing strategy is ridiculous because he just tries to be like Bijan Robinson behind the line and like, you're a tank, man, just slam through him. And that's what he did when we beat the Ravens the first time. If we can run that hard-nosed smash mouth football, we play well in Baltimore. We always have. I would have much rather win the last game and play the Chargers, or the Texans rather, but I think it's going to be close. And Ravens looked really good. I think that the Black Hole Sun wins. If you remember from last year, those memes, I'm going to go Baltimore. I'm going to go Baltimore by 1 score. I think it's going to be close, but I think that we fall short. I'm kind of already emotionally prepared for it, unfortunately. But hey, maybe I'll be proven wrong.
Hey, he's being realistic, so he'll either get the game right or he'll be very happy. Polly's saying the spread was fairly high, if he remembers correctly. Yes, you do. Currently, it opened at 8.5 for Baltimore. It's currently at 9.5 for Baltimore. Pittsburgh losing 4 straight. Baltimore winning 4 straight, including a 34-17 victory over Pittsburgh during that stretch. That might be factoring into it, but does it factor into Jason's prediction right now?
The only team that can beat the Baltimore Ravens right now is the Baltimore Ravens. Look, Lamar Jackson needs to win this game. He needs to go far in the playoffs. He is on the cusp of winning another MVP, but his playoff record does not show that. I think he's 1-4, 2-4, and just he needs to win this game. This is all on Lamar Jackson, and I think that's the problem because in the past he has tried to win the game by himself, either a fumble, and came up short. Lamar has weapons. I know Flowers is out. That's going to hurt a lot, but they still have weapons. And the biggest weapon they have, Derrick Henry, run the football. If the Ravens can run the football, chew up the clock, and just slow down the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think they're going to win this game handily. But nobody wins ugly games like Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have been an Achilles heel to the Baltimore Ravens over the years. Can Russ cook? That's the question. Can we see some vintage Russ cooking and bring back those Seattle days and win this football game? But a lot of it has to do with that run game. Pickens, oh, God, all that talent, but such a schmo when he comes to some of the other things, man, just drives me nuts. But Lamar Jackson, I think the Ravens win this game as long as Lamar Jackson does not try to win the game by himself. He does not need to run the football with Derrick Henry. Mark Andrews, who on Sideline Savants, we buried him in the middle of the year, but he has come on and he has been phenomenal the last 3, 4, 5 weeks. He has come on and like resurrected himself and came out of nowhere. They have Isaiah Likely. So they have Bateman. So they still have weapons. If Lamar trusts his weapons, he's going to win the game. If he does not, tries to run around and do all this craziness and tries to win the game by himself, he's going to lose.
Ooh. Shots are firing right now.
Okay. Anyway,
wow.
But I got the Ravens winning this game, but Pittsburgh has a chance. So Baltimore better watch it. They better be
We're
scared.
going to the Super Bowl. We're going to the Super Bowl flat.
I don't know about all that.
Max saying the Pittsburgh's biggest weapons is 4 inches space between Lamar's ears.
Woo!
Rock Renegade saying Lamar will never lead the Ravens Super Bowl, but King Henry will. And if you guys have been watching Out of Pocket for the last 4 months, I've been telling you 2 things. Don't bet against the Chiefs, the back-to-back Super Bowl champions, and this installation of the Ravens, who are the number 1 rushing team in the NFL, 187.6 yards, 7th in passing yards. This is the best Lamar Jackson season we've gotten, especially through the air. And that was after he won MVP last year. They're 3rd in points scored. They're 9th in points allowed, a 30.5 points per game, 21.2 points allowed per game. They are without Zay Flowers. It is Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin, one of my favorites for Coach of the Year, just seeing what he did with a really crappy roster that he was given. Quarterback, whatever happened, but we all know it just matters how hot you are coming in to the playoffs. And the Ravens, ever since they lost by 2 in Pittsburgh, the previous time they played, they have won 4 of their last 5, and they have won their final 4 games of the regular season. I can't see, granted, it feels like a coin flip, but I can't see Baltimore losing this game, but it will be close. It'll probably be another 2-point victory, but it'll be for Baltimore this time. Rock Renegade 100% definitely take Steelers plus the points. Yeah, that 9.5 is very rude, but I still have Baltimore by 2 when it comes to the Saturday game for the Steelers and the Ravens. And then our final AFC game happens on Sunday at 1:00. The Denver Broncos at the Buffalo Bills. And I might have a unpopular opinion, but I want to hear what these guys have to say first. Jason, Broncos, Bills. The Bills are favored at home, 8.5 points. Do you see Buffalo and Josh Allen taking this?
You talk about another quarterback that needs to win this game. Josh Allen under the gun, on the cusp of getting an MVP. The only reason why Lamar wouldn't get it is because he's already run a couple, so they just didn't want to give it to him. So they're going to turn around and give it to Josh Allen and give him one. But he's had a phenomenal season. But the Denver Broncos have been playing really good football. Their defense is legit. They're playing, in Western New York, which doesn't scare a Denver team. I am going to pick the Denver Broncos on this. I think the Buffalo Bills don't have enough firepower. I think Josh Allen throwing to Josh Allen, running with Josh Allen is too much. I know they have Cook back there and Davis, who are exceptional running backs, but I think the Broncos defense shuts them down. I know there's going to be some weather there in Western New York, so I think it's going to be an interesting game. But I think the Broncos, look, Bo Nix is Rookie of the Year. If you didn't have Brock Bowers and you didn't have Jalen Daniels, you have these guys. I mean, it was an unbelievable season for rookies. Malik Neighbors, you talk about some fantastic rookies this year, but Bo Nix, he's baby Josh Allen. He looks like Josh Allen. He's a big kid. He can run the football. He can throw the football. Him and Sutton are on a whole nother level right now. For being a rookie, to have that kind of connection with one of his wide receivers is phenomenal. I'm going to take the Broncos in the upsets. The Bills have trouble getting over the hump with Josh Allen. He really needs to win this game, but I think the Denver Broncos defense is going to win this game for him.
And that's
Broncos by 3.
Broncos by 3.
Yeah.
Chris, do you agree with that upset?
I think it's going to be closer than the spread says by a mile. I am gonna, excuse me, I am gonna go say that I'm going with Buffalo, simply because again we were talking about the weather. Obviously, both teams are very used to adverse conditions, but during those bad conditions, what do they go to? They go to the run game. James Cook has been fantastic this year. Javonte Williams, not so much. That Broncos rush game is not very good, and that Broncos pass game too kind of lacks, despite Bo Nix being incredible. It's not as good as the Bills. The Bills know how to win good games, high quality games. They beat the Chiefs this year. They beat high quality opponents. They're battle tested. They're proven. And I think that they're the most likely team to take out the big bad Kansas City Chiefs as we move on in this playoffs here, because they would actually face Baltimore in the next round if they win. I'm going Buffalo. I think it's going to be a lot closer than the spread says, but give me Josh Allen. He's got a lot of weight in his shoulders, and I think he's willing to take that pressure. So I'm rolling with the Bills.
And we could see a scenario where the last realistic team that beat the Chiefs could face them in the AFC title game. And Buffalo would have home field advantage before that. Derek agrees with Chris on that prediction for the Bills. The Bills are undefeated at home right now, 8-0. They're 13-4 overall. But when you get into this time of the year, yes, Buffalo's had some cupcakes when it comes to wild card quarterbacks they've played. I think Skylar Thompson at some point. Very obscure names that Buffalo's had to face in the wild card round. So it's been a piece of cake. I really love the pairing of Bo Nix and Sean Payton. Sean Payton finally got his guy, but more importantly, Denver's defense is rolling. They have given up the third least amount of points per game at like 18 something this year. And at this time of the year in January, defense wins championships. And I would not be surprised whatsoever if the Bills are upset by the Broncos. I don't want to say Broncos by 3 because Jason already did it. How about Broncos by 1? And it's probably on a blocked field goal. And if that happens, I need somebody to clip this and we'll put it out on social media for everybody. If it doesn't happen, if Buffalo blows them out by like 20, this segment never happened. We're just going to go ahead and move on to the NFC playoff picture. And it's quite crazy. The playoff picture will be locked in by 4 p.m. Sunday with the AFC. But for the NFC, Packers, Eagles, I know who I want to win. But, Chris, who do you think wins? Green Bay on the road or Philadelphia, who is red hot right now?
I think it's going to be a lot close. I think it's another one. I mean, this is a great playoffs, by the way. I just want to say that before both you guys, I'm sure, agree with that. The matchups are really fascinating. I think that's going to be another really close one. I mean, Green Bay, they did lay an egg when they had something to play for in Week 18. I watched that whole game with a Packers fan who was not the happiest on earth. And, yeah, Jordan Love's fantastic. He really is, but he didn't look great in that last game of the year. I think it's going to be close, but Philly is red hot. Saquon Barkley looks fantastic. I think that if he would have played that last game, if that game would have meant something, he would have broke the single season rushing record. That receiving core is red hot. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They spread the ball well, and Hurts is a full participant in practice, last I read. As long as Hurts plays, give me the Eagles. Give me the Eagles by 7.
He's got the Eagles by 7. Jason, do you think our NFC East rival pulls it out?
Yeah, and Hurts is playing. I guess he did clear concussion protocol. I know they were worried about that a little bit. Yeah, Eagles are just a tougher team, and they are deep. Packers are a good team, but, Jordan Love banged up his elbow a little bit there. I wonder how much that's going to hurt him. Losing Christian Watson hurt them too, because that wide receiver core has not been consistent. Reed has kind of fallen off. Dontavian Wicks, there's a bunch of guys on that wide receiver team that were young, up and coming, that just kind of really haven't showed up. So I think the Packers are going to struggle in this game. I'm more interested to see what's going to happen with the Eagles when it comes to that 4th and 1. Are they going to put Jalen Hurts out there, who just got out of concussion protocol, and are they going to push him into a pile of guys with his head first, or are they going to bring in another quarterback? Are they going to make Saquon do the tush push? So I'm curious to see what's going to happen on 4th and 1 with the Eagles when it comes to Jalen Hurts, because I don't think they want to get him hurt. But Saquon Barkley, MVP. If you didn't have Josh Allen, if you didn't have Lamar Jackson playing out of his mind, guy rushed for 2,000 yards this year, which is phenomenal. As a Giants fan, it pains me to watch it, but I'm also excited for him because I love him. I think he's an awesome person, and he's had a phenomenal season. But I think they're going to run the football like mad. Gainwell back there also is, they got a nice little 1-2 punch. So I think that's going to be pretty interesting. And they do have 2 top wide receivers. And I think they can count on their wide receivers better than the Packers can count on their wide receiver core right now. So I think this is Eagles all day long. I think they blow the Packers out. They just do not look good right now. So give me the Eagles. I say it's by 2 touchdowns.
And Drew Coach Sports Talk agreeing with you on the receivers. Packers feel like they're a year too early. They need an alpha wide receiver 1. Derek's like, I think I know how Carson feels.
Sorry, Carson.
The host of Lombardi Party. It's so I was going to go Philadelphia. If you watched Out of Pocket on Tuesday, saw my top core rankings, I actually put Philadelphia ahead of Detroit. I think they are the favorite to go and win the NFC, as much as that pains me to say. It feels like everything's clicking for them. But I need to talk this through for a second. Bear with me, because I need to talk this through, because I mean, you brought up a good point. Philadelphia, if they can get into that 3rd and 1, that 4th and 1, it's an automatic first down. If they put Jalen Hurts out there in that tush push and he gets hurt, we're talking a different ball game. Kenny Pickett comes in, and Kenny Pickett against Green Bay's defense. I mean,
Pickett's still hurt, isn't he?
I mean, I feel like he's still the backup, even with the rib injury. Yeah, he's not on the injury report, so he would come in that moment. Kenny Pickett against the Green Bay Packers, I'm taking the Packers defense all day. And if they aren't that aggressive, then Philadelphia loses an aspect of their offense that's really, really crucial. And Green Bay last year, unfortunately, was the first ever 7 seed to be a 2 seed. And when they went to Dallas and won, and Dallas hadn't lost at home all year. Philadelphia 8-1 at home this year. It's tough. I know Matt LaFleur will get his guys ready to play. If Saquon wasn't on this team, I would probably say that Green Bay wins. I'm not betting against Philadelphia right now. Philadelphia probably wins this game by 9 points. If Jalen Hurts is healthy and finishes the game healthy, I'm going to take the Eagles, which brings us to our final game of the weekend. We'll talk about the Vikings-Rams that got moved to Arizona because of the LA wildfires. We'll talk about that game on Monday and how it impacts these two teams. But Sunday night on NBC or Peacock, the Washington Commanders, another NFC East rival of myself and Jason's, in Tampa to play the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are favored by 3. I'm sure Browns fans aren't going to be happy about Baker Mayfield thriving in back-to-back playoff appearances for the Buccaneers. Jason, do you think the NFC East Commanders can pull it out, or do you think the NFC South champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers finds a way to advance in these playoffs?
Look, Commanders, great story. I'd say at least 2 years ahead of schedule. They coming out of new ownership, a whole regime change, trying to change the stain that was on that team, has been utterly amazing to what they have done and how they've changed that culture around. So kudos to them. Daniel's playing out of his mind. He's rookie of the year. Just give it to him now. He's been phenomenal. But I think the Bucs win this game. Baker Mayfield has a chip on his shoulder, and you can see by the way he's been playing this year that he wants to win and he wants to get there, and he's been playing phenomenal. He led that Bucs team when Mike Evans and Godwin went down. So, I mean, to lose your top 2 wide receivers and still do what he did and still make the playoffs and still play at a level he's been playing, extra phenomenal. The Mike Evans catch that he got his bonus. You saw the joy in that team And I'm going to see that joy again this weekend because those guys are playing for each other. They're playing phenomenal. So give me the Bucks. I think it's going to be Bucks by 10. Mike Evans wants to win. Baker Mayfield wants to win. I think they're going to pull it out. Commanders still young. They've never had playoff pressure. Baker Mayfield has had all kinds of pressure on him, and he's been just coming through that with, smelling like roses. So Baker Mayfield, unbelievable season. I think they win this game by 10. Commanders, great job, great season, but fall a little short.
Okay. Chris, how do you see? Oh, and Matt Daniels really Mariota beat Dallas because they beat Daniels down. So that's how Mac feels about Jane Daniels' potential this weekend. Chris, how do you feel about the rookie?
I think Jane Daniels fantastic. He's rookie of the year by a mile. And I'm going to have to go with mouthing off with Mike. I am going the Commanders. Bucks defense has been suspect. Obviously, the Commanders defense, especially that secondary, is really, really rough. And I think that secondary is going to really, really struggle against Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans. But I think the Commanders balance out that rush and balance out that pass at a decent amount. And I think that those corner defensive linemen, they can pressure Mayfield, make him leave the pocket, make him make a couple bad decisions. You might get an interception there. I think it's going to be a very similar game to their game against Atlanta on Sunday Night Football, where they come out at the end. Give me Commanders by 3 and the upset. And I think the Commanders might even make a little bit of a run in these playoffs.
Wow. And that would be that would hurt me personally. Seeing Dan Quinn, I still blame Dan Quinn for the loss last year that Dallas suffered in that wild card round against the Green Bay Packers. So for him to, win this game and then go on a deep playoff run would be pretty it would hurt a lot. I'm not going to
let it go, man. Let it go.
Not going to lie. It would hurt a lot. Now here's a couple things I do want to point out. Tampa surprisingly has one of the best offenses in the league. 3rd in passing yards per game, 4th in rushing yards per game, 4th in points per game. And Washington themselves has impressed at 12-5. They're 5th in points per game. They're 3rd in rushing yards per game, which has been kind of crazy. Usually rookie quarterbacks don't thrive in their first playoff game, especially if it's on the road. And so that is what has me right now. That's what has me right now taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield probably had his best career year after Dave Canales left for Carolina. The guy had 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns. He did have almost a pick a game, but that's what you get with Baker Mayfield, a career high in completion percentage, career high in yards, career high in touchdowns. Like, he has probably had his best career year. When you have Mike Evans, when you have two guys running the ball like they are with Rachaad White and Bucky Irvin, Derek Polley, most underrated game in his opinion. There's probably a reason this is Sunday night because they know it's probably going to be the closest game. And also you have Tristan Wirfs, who's protecting Baker Mayfield and helping with that run game. Give me the Buccaneers. Give me the Bucks by 5, and to rid the NFC playoff picture of at least one of these NFC East teams.
Fire the cannons.
Fire the cannons.
Fire the cannons.
We got Baker Mayfield playing his heart out, and it'd be very interesting to see if Antoine Winfield Jr. does join the game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because that'll be a huge loss if he's not able to go. But that is our wild card predictions. We will be back on Out of Pocket, and Matt bringing up week 1, they beat Washington by 17, but these are two very completely different teams. I won't bring up the year Dallas lost to Tampa Bay week 1 and then came back and ended the career of Tom Brady. So you're welcome, America. We ended the career of the GOAT. Just saying. So if you guys hate the Cowboys, you can at least appreciate that. But guys, I appreciate y'all so much. I'm not going to read mouth off with Mike's comment, but I will be watching the nightcap when Mike and the guys are on after Friday Night SmackDown tonight, concluding at 11 o'clock. So be sure to come back onto Boom Broadcasting and watch mouthing off with Mike and the Nightcap recovering SmackDown. What happens tonight on the Blue Brand? Bookend to the season, and that is a bookend to Out of Pocket on Boom Broadcasting for the week. We'll be back on Monday. Don't forget to check out these guys. Chris has his dugout debrief from last week. Jason has his 3 from deep from Monday. Nightcap tonight. The Gridiron Address Sunday evening. Stay tuned to socials for that. And Out of Pocket. We'll be back to cover a lot of this stuff and whatever happens this weekend. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot to talk about on Monday when we're back for Out of Pocket. For Chris, for Jason, and myself, we appreciate you guys spending your Friday evening with us. Be warm, be safe, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
Well, that's it. I really hope you enjoyed it. We had a ball making it. Thank you very much.